The United Federation of Teachers is some 200,000 members strong, representing teachers and other professionals in New York City's public school community. Since 2009, the often outspoken, sometimes controversial, Staten Island-born Michael Mulgrew has been its president. Teacher evaluations and corporate education reform and educational equity are all issues at the forefront of New York's teachers union, and we suspect the daily agenda of its president, who joins us now. Michael Mulgrew, welcome to BK Live.
Thank you, Brian.
Well, you started your career in Brooklyn, and you were at Grady here in Brooklyn, where you were teaching there. I wonder what you learned then that informs the way that you do your job now.
Oh, what I learned was that teaching was a lot more difficult than I had ever imagined it would be. That people who can do it well really need a lot of support and a lot of help, and we need to be able to share that with each other. And we are, we're lucky and fortunate in New York City, to have tens and thousands of great dedicated teachers, but that's also why we lose so many teachers, because it really is difficult. That's the first thing I picked up on, was how difficult it was, and I was shocked at how many people leave because of the difficulty of the job. And then the children, if you're staying, it's about the kids, because they just tie you in. I love my students, and it's funny because all teachers say the same thing, my kids. They are our kids. Don't mess with our kids. Yeah.
So retention, like you just touched on, has been an issue for new teachers, and I saw you in an interview where you talked about retention rates in other professions and how many people fall off. But the stakes are a little bit different when you're in the classroom. So what is that middle ground between attracting the best people and letting them do their best work, and the people who fall away because it's just not for them?
It's really, I believe that we should revamp the whole system, how we prepare people to teach. It's a wonderful thing that people make a decision to say, I want to help kids as my life's work. But the whole way that we prepare teachers, we should copy things that we find in other countries. You might have your teaching license. You should spend at least a year in a school really learning the day-to-day nuts and bolts of educating a student, because it's not just about your lesson plan or how you prepare to deliver instructions or questioning. It's also how you form your relationships, how you go through the daily grind, really, of questioning children, all the different challenges they have. It's a wonderful thing, but it's overwhelming at times. And if you had that time to do that, I believe you'd have much higher retention rates.
This is like that laddering system that we've heard so much about with master teachers and beginning teachers. How's that bearing out? That's
bearing out very well, actually. The teachers have really embraced that in in schools. We have certain districts, District 16 in Brooklyn, one of them, who's now taken that to a whole different teacher leader program. They have like a training program for you to even then take one of those positions. Really exciting, organic work. And that's really what I learned when I started teaching in my time, my 12 years at Grady, is you give folks who are really into this real support, and they'll figure out how to make a better school for their kids, because that's what they want.
So here in the program, we've been doing a deep dive into this issue of school segregation, and of course taking a lot of perspective of students and their parents. But I wondered how school segregation impacts teachers, both those new folks who might be in their one-year learning curve and the more seasoned master teachers who are professionals.
Well, for us, for the teachers, and I'm really proud that because during a previous administration under the mayor,
we know who.
Yeah. So this was an issue that we couldn't get lifted off the ground because they wanted nothing to do with it. They wanted nothing to do with at that point, the lack of diversity in the teaching forces. That was growing rapidly because they were recruiting outside of New York City. So under this administration, the teachers have really started pushing these ideas that we want a diverse school. Research tells us that it's better for all of the students in the building. So why would we want a school that's not really culturally diverse? And plus, if you're in New York City, you should be embracing cultural diversity, because that is our strength, and that is what makes us such a great place. So teachers have really come out and been very vocal about coming up with ideas on how to start using policies We have, it was a group of 7 schools 2 years ago who put forth an idea that said, we want our schools to be completely integrated, and we're going to start bringing students in different ways. And it was the teachers who led that move, started pushing that out. And then the city started listening, the department had started moving. Yeah. They're not moving as fast as we want, but it needs to be organic. Top down, I'm sorry. And I do believe in New York City, where you have a school community has a conversation, everybody gets on board and we move it, because I've already seen the evidence of it.
You know, we've been in some of those school communities. I know there are 7 schools in New York right now that are part of a pilot program. We visited one and spoke with the principal and some folks there, and I just wondered, what is a school to do? It seems like we know it's a microcosm of a greater society, but they're trying to cure the ills of gentrification and income inequality and teach kids reading, writing, and arithmetic. So from your point of view, what is the prime focus of a school as we sit here in Brooklyn right now?
For me, it's students' academic achievement, 1. 2, how do you develop them as the social emotional development as a whole person? And 3, citizenship. Okay? I mean, I think we really need to focus a little bit on citizenship because people need to understand that, you know, the government's going to have a big effect on everything that happens inside of our country. So those are the 3 major things. If you take all 3 of them into as the focus, then school integration should be a no-brainer because those 3 things are affected positively by school integration. And the schools that are doing it, it's clearly, it's working. I'm very proud of schools who, so we have a school right now, Harvest Collegiate, it's in Manhattan, who started out and they've done very well. So once they do very well, they get a reputation and they get a whole bunch, an influx of people. And they're like, no, we need to stay, we want the equal percentages of children at performance levels. Now, a lot of schools, there are schools that just want to take great kids and say they're doing a great job.
Creaming.
Yes. To me, you're doing a great job if you can take all children, diverse, integrated, and you move them all. And you have to do that the right way, and schools can figure that out, and they're doing it. So to me, that's where we have to go. And to the thing that you brought up, what is a school to do? Integration is a really smart strategy in trying to accomplish those 3 things.
So what frameworks can be established for curriculum for teachers inside the classroom doing it organically that won't hinder their ability to make their classrooms these spaces where this could happen, even if segregation is still apparent in their classrooms?
Well, every teacher should just be given a curriculum, right? 1, that's appropriate for the students in their building. And then they, as a school, they should always customize it to what they're trying to do. You have to follow the curriculum, but what are you trying to do? What is the first thing you need to do is always analyze your students. Where are their performance levels? How do I then make sure that I'm reaching each one, and I have a plan that reaches each one of them. That's a word they now use called differentiation, which is funny to us. This is something teachers have always done, but they found a new tag word to put on top of it. And for them, every school I go into, you know, the respect for cultures is always central. I mean, I travel around the country in different work, and New York City really has a very powerful focus on respecting and learning about different cultures. And that's I've never not seen in a school.
New York City also has a powerful teachers union, and a few years ago you made some headlines with your face-punching, dirt-kicking sort of defense of the Common Core. So a few years later, has that
No, actually,
the fruit?
This is, you know, my love of social media is, and that actual speech that I gave was, we need standards. If you have to, that's our tool. That's our tool. Your tool is the camera, the microphone. Those are yours. Our tools are standards and curriculum.
So you were fighting for standards more than Common Core specifically.
And in that performance, which was edited out, I literally said, if you don't like the Common Core, change them. But don't let anyone ever say, take our standards away from us. And that's what we have to, you have to have standards, you base your curriculum off it, then the teacher develops the lesson plan.
And how do those standards come to bear when we see these inequities in funding, in classrooms, in integration, if we're talking about bringing this thing back to school segregation, if we standardize those standards, is that tide going to lift every student ship?
Well, that's the whole idea of teaching. Teaching is, these are the standards, these are the goals you want every child to achieve. So, money matters. Mm-hmm. Money matters, and if you have a challenging set of students, we have that in New York City. You embrace that, but people who actually say that money doesn't matter, come on, man, are you serious? You know, in New York City, New York State is a little upside down on funding in terms of the more affluent school districts in the state get more money per student than the more challenging school districts. Right. So that's something we're pushing big on in Albany this year. We'll see where the federal government goes. That's going to be very interesting, to say the least, because I think what you're going to see at the federal level is really the defunding more and more of things like education, healthcare, and different things of that nature.
So who are your allies in this coalition that would set standards and work to make New York schools look more like the kind of society we'd like to see where they are integrated? Oh,
we have tons of different advocacy groups, community groups we're working with. You know, and I can't stress this enough. This has to be driven from the ground up. I've seen this approach where people come in and say, "Oh, you need to do this," and then you just cause a conflict. Where if all you do is say, let's have a conversation as a school community, let's bring in the parents, not the teachers, people from the neighborhood, local, show the research. Right. It's clear this is a good thing, and all of a sudden people embrace it and move it up. So you have all sorts of, there's politicians who are on board with this, parent groups around the city, student organizations are very big. Mm-hmm. So we work with all these different folks, and you know, that's what we're lucky because we started that work about a decade ago. We thought it was important. We thought our school system was headed in the wrong direction with bad policies. A student's not just a test score. There is so much more to them. They demonstrate so much more.
Or a teacher, for that matter.
Right. And I mean, when you tell a student you're a test score and you're discounting this wonderful work they're doing in a project, in a play, it's something where they're demonstrating mastery, and just saying that doesn't count. So we were able to really form a great working relationship around the city with so many different groups. And those are what we're going to do to continue this. And I get it. People get upset. Oh, parents might want this, parents might not. I said, if you tell parents the facts, they're going to be all right.
So then 20 years from now, when you're the president of the AFT, and they make the movie about this chapter, who was the bad guy? Who was the enemy of reform standing in the door of integration and the things that you'd like to see accomplished?
It's really political will. And if school communities take the challenge on themselves, I'm a big believer in we just do it ourselves. Mm-hmm. Take it on. That's how those seven schools went at it. They did that. Right. They designed that plan before the Department of Ed said anything. This is something they wanted to do. And now we have a cohort of schools much bigger than the seven who are now going to push that next year. And there'll be an additional close to 30 schools moving on that. But once you start getting that momentum, you get near that, you start that momentum, then it's just pushing up to the tipping point where it's like, of course this is what you want. This is what you want, because in the end, your child will get a better education. All the children will get a better education. And they help each other.
Well, Michael Mulgrew, thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you.
See how much we can all help each other.
All right.
Thank you for being here. We really appreciate the conversation.